throughout the country. One is to celebrate the Bharatiya New Year, that is Yugadi, in the month of Chaitra instead of January. Second one is Guru Vandana, to pay respects to our great Guru Parampara in the month of Ashada. Third one is Shikshak Samman, to honor 3 eminent teachers who have contributed much to the cause of education, chosen by an expert committee. Fourth one, in the month of January, between Swami Vivekananda's birthday and Subhash Chandra Bose's birthday, in the name of these 2 great personalities, we are organizing Kartavya Bodha Divas or Sankalpa Divas, in which the teachers dedicate themselves to their profession. Fifth one, to arrange lectures, workshops, seminars on value-based education. Our Mahasangh compromises all teachers from KG to PG. ABRSM's vision, totally in a nutshell, is Raksha Hit Ke Liye Shiksha, Shiksha Hit Ke Liye Shikshak, Shikshak Ka Hit Ke Liye Samaj. In tune with this vision of ABRSM, all the affiliated Southern organizations, those are Karnataka Rajya Madhyamika Shikshana Sangha, Telangana Pranta Upadhyaya Sangham, Andhra Pradesh Upadhyaya Sangham, Deshi Ashiyar Sangham, Deshi Ashiyar Sangham Puducherry, National Teachers Union are working with the same motto. Now, I want to say a few words about Karnataka Rajya Madhyamika Shikshana Sangha, the collaborating organization of this program. KRMSS is pioneering teachers organization of Karnataka, which has completed its golden jubilee. In the past 50 years, we have solved many problems of teachers and educational system. We have organized many programs for teachers to inculcate professional ethics, to expose them to the new methodology of teaching and to upgrade the standard of knowledge and self-confidence among our teachers. We have also fought the injustice caused to the teachers in many ways. We have organized many programs like Pratibha Puruskar and then classes to the slow learners through Janamani, Jnana Bharati, that is radio program, and such many more programs to uplift the underprivileged students. I am very proud to state that about 25 years back only, Mr. Bob Garden, who visited as a representative of Canadian Teachers Federation, after observing our activities, he exclaimed that the KRMSS is a lighthouse organization among all the teachers' organizations. This itself is suffice to inspire all our teachers. Friends, I am grateful to ABRSM and KRMSS for giving me an opportunity to express a few words with you. Dhanyavad, Jai Bharat.
Thank you, Srimati Sitalakshmi Madam, for the informative speech. Women who can rock the cradle can surely rule the nation one day. And this goes true with Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, Honorable Finance Minister, Government of India. She is India's first woman finance minister. Forbes magazine has ranked her 34th among the 100 most powerful women in the world in 2019. Now, let us welcome Honorable Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman to share her views on the role of women teachers in nation building.
Namaskar. I wish to start by saying thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. The Akhil Bharatiya Shaikshik Mahasangh, the Karnataka Rajya Madhyamika Shikshana Sangha, and also the Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry teachers who have also joined in this. I thank all of you for having given me this opportunity. And we are meeting in the context of the 74th Independence Day celebrations, which are forthcoming within a week. In that context, to think about, to talk about, to associate ourselves with teachers, particularly women teachers, I feel extremely honored, because just not as words, but honestly, in every person's life, whatever be the career path that they choose, in every person's life, undeniably, there is the role of a teacher. A teacher who many of us remember, or several teachers who we remember. Many great people have also attributed their thought formation, their personality formation, and also their character formation to some or the other teacher in their life. It is just not possible that people who have achieved great heights have never quoted a teacher who was a great influence. It's not saying, of course, that to all our children, the first thing, each one of them, the first thing that our families have taught is, first it's your mother, then it's your father, then it's your teacher, and only then is God. Mata, Pita, Guru, and then only Guru. So the first ever teacher that a child faces is a woman teacher, the mother. And then comes the father. And then a teacher, a formal teacher in a school. And therefore, ours is a civilization which very clearly identifies mother, respects mother as the first teacher for any child. So there itself, the beginning of a woman teacher. So today when we are talking about role of women teachers in nation building, it starts from our homes, where we have attributed the child's formative years, learnings, first initial primary learnings, all to the mother first, then to the father, then of course to the formal guru. So that is the kind of importance that we as a civilization give to mother and womanhood in teaching. However, of course, the role of men is no less. So although I'm focusing on talking about women, teachers per se have that great an influence in each of our lives. There are, of course, several examples that I can take, but then the first thing that I have to grant is in the formative years of a student, of a child, of a young mind, they spend maximum time with the teachers. So other than being in the house, the child spends maximum time with the teacher, with a group of teachers. And therefore that impressionable mind has just got itself continuously exposed to what the teachers say. In fact, all of us are probably familiar that the mother or father or a sister or brother could say a thing in the house, but the child would say, no, this is what my teacher has told in the school, and that should be the final word. So it becomes very clear that the child places that impression which he or she forms because of the word from the teacher as unquestionable. And therefore, in the formation of the thoughts, in the making of that mind, in the way in which that child grows to apply more importance to the imparted thought, imparted by the teacher thought, that makes that individual. And if majority time of that impressionable young mind is being spent in the company of teachers, the role of the teacher is absolutely critical in making sure that this mind is shaped accordingly. It's allowed to flower accordingly, not restricted, not contained, not quietened. And therefore, for the trust that the child places on the teacher, who strictly speaking is an outsider, he or she is not part of the family, but still the child, because he goes to the school, and in the school, the word of the teacher is so important, there is so much faith and trust which is laid on the teacher. The child gives everything that it will give to a parent, to the teacher. And therefore, that trust has to be returned immense fold. It has to be paid back in so many ways. And the role of the teacher, therefore, becomes absolutely critical later on for nation building. But the nation is nothing but its people. So the people or the young minds who you create, who you build, who you form, who you shape, are the ones who are going to shape the country itself. And therefore, the role of the teacher in forming and shaping this young mind, who gives the entire trust to you as teacher, is so critical. And therefore, I would think the role of teachers, particularly women teachers, who bond with their students very much in those formative years, is very critical. And therefore, I would think there could be very many big positions which many people will grow to, but all that is thanks to the teacher who invests the time, who is investing all the efforts in building this young mind. When I started speaking, I did say that teacher plays a very big role. In our civilization, we talk about Mata, Pita, and then Guru. Even in modern days, like if I were to recollect, there was a survey done somewhere in the UK, if I remember correct. And in that survey, teachers took the third biggest place in the mind of children. Nearly 80% of children responded saying teachers are the biggest influence after their parents and friends. In a Western society, where there's a lot of individuality which is given importance, even there, the survey among students said that teachers are the biggest influence only after their parents and their siblings, their friends. So teacher plays a very important role, and in this, there are anecdotal examples which one can give of great people who, having achieved greatness, still attributed their greatness, their achievements, their man-making years to teachers. Our latest, most loved president, Sri Abdul Kalam, most often quoted two teachers. One was his maths teacher. All of you all do know that he studied in Rameshwaram, which is a very small, remote, but yet a very important pilgrim town. He grew there, he grew up there, attended school there. He constantly recalled that biggest impression was made by his maths teacher. And another teacher who taught him to have self-belief. So these two teachers, which Sri Abdul Kalam constantly recalled, were so impressionable that one taught him mathematics, the other taught him to have belief in himself, which contributed to his career and his achievements. There are several such examples one can speak of. Great men, great women most often talk about the influence of teachers. But in India, there are enough number of teachers who are women, and there is this impression that there are more women in teaching. But actually, data shows that for every 100 men, today there are only 73 women teachers. 5-6 years ago, for every 100 men, there were about 64 women teachers. I'd like a day when there are, for every 100 male teachers, 100 women teachers, because that brings in a great sense of, balance in approach, in the chemistry which works between teachers and students. And therefore, it is important to have more and more women teachers. And for educating a woman, most civilizations do talk about how important it is to have women to be educated. So they always say that if you teach a man to fish, he earns his meal that day. But if you were to teach a woman, she educates her whole family and they can live for, take care of themselves and so on. So the importance of educating a woman is highlighted very often in very many countries' histories. Women who have spent time and made a remarkable impression on civilization because they chose to educate other women. I cannot but put the name forward of one lady who is very important for India's history, Savitribai Phule. Amazing contribution towards education. At a time when it was not a big thing, an acceptable thing to set up schools for girls, Savitribai Phule in Pune set up schools not just for girls, but for girls belonging to untouchable communities. I'm using the word untouchable in a conscious fashion. We don't use that word these days. But in those days, that is, she lived between 1831 and 1997, I think, 1897. She established school for girls, not only girls, but established schools for children, girl children coming from scheduled caste communities. She was the first one to set up a girls' school and the first teacher for a girls' school. The contribution that she made has made people sit up and watch and say, what is happening? How is it? But that is the kind of impact a woman teacher could have in educating children, particularly coming from very challenging circumstances. So if that example is there before us, it's very important to understand the message that gives. Teaching to children coming from very challenged environments, deprived children, is not going to be easy at all. But I'm sure many of you do it. I'm sure many of you have undertaken such challenges. And that is very important because this country, even today, has who really can't even afford basic schooling. So what we learn from a school is just not reading and writing. It is, if you ask me, teachers are contributing towards education that nurtures the soul. And that's what is important. It's one thing for you all to teach, akshara or your writing skills or your reading skills. But the more time you impart these together with your own way of communicating with the child, what you're telling the child or what you're equipping the child with is to think how to think. Also that thought in linking with the world, in the real world that we live in. And therefore it is an education actually which nourishes the soul. And therefore soul education is what we have to eventually look at, because that's what when great men and women, when they recall the role that the teachers have played, that is the role which they are recognizing, identifying, acknowledging, saying, I may become a great mathematician, I may become a great scientist, but at the end of the day, together with it, if I'm able to recall the contribution made by that great teacher, I am a better individual. And it is that which you're imparting to children. And therefore, the role that a teacher plays, irrespective of the fact that the teacher comes from a very different background, Even as I spoke about Savitri Bai Phule, I'll also speak about not an Indian, but nevertheless an example, Helen Keller, born blind, born visually challenged, born hearing also challenged. She became one of the prominent teachers of her times. In spite of all the challenges, physical challenges that she faced, she set an example of how teachers can conduct themselves and stand up and make many more such influences, which I'm sure all of you are making. One other lady who I would want to draw before you, who was a teacher. She taught writing, reading, basic history to primary school children. Again, not an Indian example, but an example I will definitely put before you. Golda Meir. She was teaching somewhere in Milwaukee in USA. But who is she? As to who she is something which we all recognize in a different way. I don't think any one of us will recognize Golda Meir as a former teacher. She was the most powerful prime minister of Israel. Israel, in its formative years, had Golda Meir, a lady, a very tough lady, as the prime minister of that country in its initial years, in its formative years. And who was she? A former teacher, a former primary school teacher. So, the impact that you as a teacher make on the nation is indirect through the various generations of students that you make, that you build, that you form. But you also influence directly when, like Golda Meir, when, like Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, you directly come to governing country. So teachers have had that brilliant kind of influence on society. The first ever physician of India, woman physician, who went out, Anandibai Joshi, went out of the country, learned to become a doctor, went to USA and came back. When? 200 years ago. So women inherently have that capacity in them, and therefore they play a very critical role in teaching. Women's education, therefore, is a great priority. I can recall during our Prime Minister, when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat, had launched a special program to bring in enthusiasm in enrolling children in schools. It was called Kanya Kelamani. It was such a beautiful way in which girl children were enrolled into schools. And on the first day of school, these children would be made to sit on camel or elephant backs, and there would be a procession taking them to school. The entire village would walk along with them, being so proud that my little child is going to the school. So the Prime Minister, when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat, brought in this wonderful scheme, which increased enrollment, which made poor parents feel, look at my child on the top of a camel or on the top of an elephant, going where? To a school. So when that kind of an environment is given, children love to go to school, enjoy schooling with all the kind of attention which teachers can give. And that is why I remember when moving from Gujarat as Chief Minister, his term was over and he was coming to Delhi to become Prime Minister. From his own personal savings, Prime Minister gave 21 lakhs of rupees to form a corpus. And from that corpus, to spend money towards the girl children of the peons, attendants, and drivers who worked in the Sachivalaya in Gujarat. And similarly, I remember also all the gifts that he had received as Prime Minister. He gave them out in auction, and nearly 89 crores of rupees were received after the auction. Even that was given towards education costs, particularly for girl children's education. So there is this cultural strength which we have in girls being curious, girls being wanting to learn better. After all, we have from a Vedic history, Maitreyi, Gargi, and such great women who enjoyed simultaneously learning and also participating in discussions. And Tarka Shastra was built by many of them. We've got this thing about women acquiring knowledge, learning, and also becoming effective teachers. So I would think the role of women in building character in human beings, in giving and nourishing the soul of individuals, are the main reason that we would have good citizens in this country, good responsible citizens in this country, who understand this country's ethos, that we are not inclined to do things in the harsher way. We don't enter into violence when things don't go in our favor. It is in our inherent character that we wait and watch and also accept things as they come. These are qualities which teachers teach us in schools and make us better individuals. And once you have more and more young minds which are nicely molded in this fashion, you are able to see that responsible young citizens are created, and it is responsible young citizens who in turn build the country. So teachers, man or woman, but particularly women teachers, have this great class connect with their students. When I say class connect, I mean classroom connection. The imparting of thoughts, sharing of thoughts, having negotiation with the children about what is it that they learn and what is it that they ask for from a teacher is so beautifully achieved when this transaction happens between teachers and children. And in that, therefore, it clearly places a great importance on teachers, particularly women teachers, who can stand out in building that kind of a relationship. In my own life, I can, at least in every stage of my schooling, I've moved several schools because my father was in a transferable job. In each school, I can name even today at least 2 teachers who have had strong influence on me. And these are the kind of things which matter. A teacher who influenced me, let us say in class 5, I do remember even today. A teacher who influenced me in class 8, I do remember even today with her name and the specific things that she made me do, which I feel very happy about even today. The teacher, particularly in class 11 those days, I belonged to the 11th standard in Tamil Nadu, after which the 10+2 came in. The teacher who molded me a lot in class 11. Each of those stages, I can literally say what kind of relationship that teacher had with me and therefore had an impact in molding my personality, good, bad, whatever. Bad is my own, but the teacher's goodness which came and made me what I am today. I duly recognize the role that he or she played. Largely they were she. I studied in girls' schools and therefore I do remember all of them. And similarly, when I came to college, the influence of my English teacher, the influence of my Sanskrit teacher, and one of the teachers who taught me logic in school, that was a separate paper. In college, that was. I remember each one of them. So every person therefore has a very strong memory because these are very impressionable ages. And in that impressionable age, the impression left by the teacher is something which no individual can ever forget. You're building India through building these souls, building these human minds. And therefore, I think you have a beautiful role. You can be proud of yourselves for the contribution you're making particularly to a country like India, whose strength is in its demography, in the people, young people. Today, India is one of the countries which has the highest number of youngsters. Under 30 population today is the highest if you look at globally. So you are the ones who are creating a good lot of vibrancy in their minds. You're molding these thoughts. You're nurturing these souls. And therefore, I would think you're nation builders. And a lot depends on the essence and spirit of what you give our children. And that's what is going to make the future of India. And therefore, I'm very grateful that you've given me this opportunity. I've tried conveying my thoughts, but before teachers, no one can be successful in conveying thoughts. Teachers are the masters of that. And therefore, in all my modesty, I can only say I've just shared some thoughts, but I can't speak to teachers because you're the masters. And before you, I'm still a student. And having given me this opportunity, I really thank you and every teacher in this country who are the ones who make a difference to Indian citizens, who are performing so beautifully globally. They're competing globally. They are achieving globally. They are no less to anybody else from any part of the world. And that itself is a big tribute to you, the teachers in India. If Prime Minister says that India should become a Vishwa Guru, your gurus, who can make India Vishwa Guru? And therefore, I'm extremely pleased and honored to be here. I dedicate this little talk that I've given before you to the glory of India's teachers. You are brilliant. You are making generations of Indians compete globally and achieve globally, and there cannot be a greater service to this nation. So, my humble pranams. Thank you very much for having given me this opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am, for your meaningful and inspirational words. You are a great role model to each and every woman. Madam, we are receiving so many questions. Now we are taking 2 or 3 questions only because of constraint of time. I request you to kindly answer these questions, madam.
Sure.
Madam, the first question that has come for you is, you have provided almost 99,300 crores as budget for education, which is much more than the previous budgets. What are the plans for the next budget? Can you give some job security to private school teachers, which is what it is? This is the question raised from Mr. Nagabhushan Rao, who is from ABRSM, Bangalore.
One thing I can surely say is that during the pandemic, COVID, during the lockdown, and also immediately after the lockdown, the way in which technology has been adapted to reach out to students, and the way in which teachers have adapted themselves to using technology are all exemplary. In fact, globally, people are wondering how India, notwithstanding its size and the diversity in our geographical terrain, languages, and so on, has still found technology as a very effective tool to reach out. There are, of course, disparities. Poorer children are not able to access. I recognize that. So we will definitely work together with the Ministry of Education, which is now called Education. Earlier it was Human Resource Development, to see how best we can help in giving and spreading resources from the ministry. So the budgetary work has not started yet, so I can't comment on it at the moment. But I can see how various things have to be done for making education adaptable to the changing circumstances. Similarly, on your question about private school teachers, I must say education is also a subject of both center and state. Both the state governments in a federal system and the center will have to work together, understanding the role played by private school teachers. That's something which I'll certainly talk with the Minister of Education.
Thank you, Madam. I'll go into the second question. It is asked from Dr. Gandhimati. Madam, you spoke on nourishing soul of the young minds. What are your views about the new education policy 2020?
The first thing about the new education policy that I would like to say is, you may take the example of any country. In forming or in framing a education policy, the extent of consultation, the range of stakeholders with whom consultations were held. One level was done and the second level of consultations were done. Members of parliament representing all constituencies were also invited for discussion. Education ministers from every state was consulted. At the state level, every education related stakeholder was consulted. The long and short of what I want to say is, if a policy is being framed, stakeholder consultation is but natural. You will do it. But this education policy, I'm very happy to say, had the widest of consultation process. Widest, deepest consultation. And after that, the policy has been brought up. It's very futuristic. It's a progressive, forward-looking, yet bringing in the strengths of this country, the diversity of this country, and giving all opportunity to all sections and access to all sections. So I would think this is one of the very, consulted, well thought shared, and mind applied of so many people in framing the policy. So I'm very happy for this policy.
Thank you, Madam. I'll get into the one last question, which is by Ms. Swapna Chari. We need more and more schools like Kendriya Vidyalaya, which provides quality education at an affordable cost. Can you view on this, Madam?
There are also Navodaya Vidyalaya, not just Kendriya Vidyalaya. One other point which I need to add here is that which I would have mentioned during my speech itself, is Prime Minister Modi's keenness made Sainik schools open for girl children. So today, Sainik schools, which are also run by the central government through the Ministry of Defense, run schools, Sainik schools, at least one in many of the states. In some states have even two. In those also, girl children are being admitted now. So Kendriya Vidyalaya, Navodaya Vidyalaya, and also Sainik schools are all quality education at affordable prices. So it's not just the spread of Kendriya Vidyalaya, but Navodaya also has to be given greater traction as much as Sainik schools.
Thank you very much, Madam. Now here we have Srimati Vijayalakshmi Nayak to deliver the vote of thanks. I, Vijayalakshmi, and on behalf of KBRSM and KRMS, first of all extend most sincere mighty God for making today's event resounding success. With his blessing and grace, we are able to make this event what it was. On behalf of KRMS and ABRSM, extend hearty vote of thanks to our beloved Finance Minister, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji, who spared time from her busy schedule to grace the function. Today, we had an opportunity to hear your thoughts, which surely encourage us in our future. We also thanks your office staff. And finally, I thank all our office bearers and participating teachers. I thank Sri Kiran Kumar and the officials of Shrutan Smith for providing us the technical support. Thank you, one and all. Jai Bharat.
Lakshmi. Now it's time to end this auspicious event by Shanti Mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kashchit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you all.